Welcome, everybody, to How to Have Extraordinary Relationships podcast. I am delighted today to be with Bibi Lynch, who is a broadcaster, podcaster, journalist. She writes on all sorts of things all across the media, and we're going to have a really wonderful discussion today about whips, which she's going to tell you about, and maybe a little bit about not having had children and how that's also happened in the media. She's ended up talking and writing about that quite a lot, and she's also the owner of Great Hair. So thank you for being here, Bibi. How are you today?
I'm fine. Thank you for highlighting the hair. Right back at you, hair wise. You'll be unsurprised I'm in therapy.
How are you finding your therapeutic experience? Because some people have very good experiences and some people don't.
I love it. I love therapy. It's been a lifesaver. I mean, literally for me. I started therapy. Lucy, before we go on, everything I say will be depressing, but I will say it with some humour that will lift everyone, okay?
It'll be
But
depressing. It'll be real. It'll be real.
I'm being real. I'm being real. Real deal, as my good friend Anna Goodman, amazing PR says. Um, my mum died when she was 40. And I started therapy when I was 39. And I think there was a real psychological thing that I
Wow.
started it, yeah, the year before I hit the age she would have been. Does that make sense? And it felt like a real need to be there. And I remember I remember it was part of the reduced fee scheme in North London, and I filled in all these forms. And I got there, and the man said to me, "Where have you been?" Like, there's been loads going on. But my first therapist was from New York, so it felt real. I felt like she was legit, and she helped me through when my dad died, and lots of things and the childless stuff. And I've had really fantastic experiences with therapy. I just wish it was free, like
Yeah.
genuinely heartfelt for everyone. I wish it was free for all of us. I remember I oh, I had a very unusual upbringing. I think I had an unusual upbringing, and when I first had therapy, I remember talking about not talking about my mum so much in the therapy, and they said your mum's kind of absent from what you're saying, and
Mm.
that felt really interesting. It's kind of, I guess, because she was so young when she died, but that doesn't mean that the import of her in our relationship, was still huge. So I kind of opened my mind to my mum a bit more after that moment. Most recently, in therapy, my therapist said, we had like a consultation. He said, "Oh, what do you want to get out of this session, or what do you want to achieve, not from this session but from therapy, what do you want to get?" And rather than say, to not feel so depressed, not feel so anxious, not to be grieving all the people that I've loved and that have died, and grieving not having children, and lots of like life awful situations, I just said to meet someone.
Mm.
And I'd said that out loud once. I was making a brilliant a podcast that was great with a brilliant presenter called Guy Lloyd, and it was called The Love Twats. Are we allowed to say twats?
Yeah, of course you
We've
said.
said it.
Yeah, yeah.
We've said it. And when during that we had a live audience, and I remember saying that because we'll talk about this, I'm sure, Lucy. But I've been single for like forever, and within this recording, I said, "Oh, I just don't want to go through my whole life not being in love or being loved."
Yes.
And that was the first time I'd articulated that. And then in therapy, that was the first time I went, and actually, this is a goal.
People come to me and say, I'm married for the third time and it's going wrong. I'm making this, but I'm like, well, the common denominator in all
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
it's not just things that are being done to us.
yeah,
A pattern is I'm single and I've been single for 25
yeah,
years. I mean,
yeah.
that's actually a pattern. Being single is a pattern.
You become comfortable within that pattern.
Mm.
And also, one of my things, I'm going to quote Sex and the City, of course. Did you love Sex and the City?
I loved it. Then I rewatched it and thought, wow. Because actually, I found Sarah Jessica Parker's Carrie's relationship with Big awful. Actually, I
Why?
rewatched it with my therapy hat on and
Did
thought,
you?
wow, this is a seriously messed up codependent relationship.
About my dating, I was just not that into me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was attracting emotionally unavailable men because guess who was emotionally unavailable? This
Mm,
freckly freak. It was me.
mm.
And again, once you realize that, you're like, and your advice around all that was like so brilliant, like self. And I remember saying to you, "Why am I so scared of relationships?" And you just said, "Well, ask that question, and then the answer will come in." And then when the answer comes in, you combat that with, what's the worst thing that can happen?
So the interesting thing about the worst thing that can, so I ask people quite often, I think it's really important to, what is your fear around this? So one fear for people whose pattern is I don't get involved people is, what if I fall in love with someone, really fall in love with them, and I really let them see me, and I really, really, really show all of the parts of myself to this person, and then they leave me.
Can I, like, do you know what? I'm really trying to be more in the present. And it's not easy. You know, the world's imploding. You know, nothing, and she
Well,
says,
it really is imploding.
everything feels too much, right? But then even that, take that and just kind of think, you know what can you do about any of it apart from be vocal and not support it, but also looking after yourself within it. You've got to go for a decaf, go and sit by the beach, go to my London, go do the, spend time with brilliant people and just,
Go and date, go and have fun, go and, get jiggy.
yeah, get cheeky.
Well, the world's ending, you might as well go take hallucinogenic drugs. I don't know,
with
it.
this back. But yeah, so there's been I feel weirdly optimistic and
Good.
positive. So I turned 59 this week. I'm not excited
Woo-hoo.
about, yeah, well, thank you, because I'm like, oh my God. And then I'm like, you know what? It is what it is. I remember writing a feature a million years ago for Red, and it was one of those letters to my younger self. And it was a beauty one, just saying, I never realized I was gorgeous. I had no idea I was gorgeous. I hated how I looked. And now I'm like, okay, 10 years' time, I'm going to look back now and think, okay, right now is the best it's going to be. So we just need to embrace it. And I hate it if I'm sounding like an Insta positivity advert here, but I think it makes sense.
Oh,
Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it?
yeah.
I know, I don't do that now. I don't even think about my nose anymore. Isn't that weird?
We've got a lovely nose. Why would
Oh,
you
well,
think
thank
about your
you.
nose?
But I never, it used to be, I'd be like, I'm walking in the room, it's coming in 2 seconds before I am. I would really think that would be the thing that people would notice. People don't care.
No, they don't. And what's interesting is most people are actually worrying about themselves or whatever.
Yeah, that's a really good
So
point.
busy worrying about, am I whatever.
Mm, mm.
But actually, they're not really. Most people aren't really that aware of other people at all.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right.
So tell me about whips. Tell me
Oh,
about
yeah. Whips. So I wrote a feature for Stella magazine about this. So yeah, 59 now. So I wrote this, I think, when I was 53, and I was talking to I think it was Kate Bosman at Stella, saying, since I've hit my 50s, younger men are the only men that approach me. And it's kind of like really noticeable. And she's like, oh, this is a feature. I was like, yeah, yeah, of course, this is a feature. And within it, she said, what do you think about the word cougar? And I was like, I do not like the word cougar. It feels so predatory and it
yeah,
doesn't,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
men are prey, or, whoever you're after is prey. And it doesn't serve either party. It's not complimentary to either. So I came up with the acronym WHIPS, women who are hot, intelligent, and in their prime. Come on. It's
Women who are hot,
brilliant.
intelligent, and in their prime. It's brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. And then I wrote a feature about, becoming a whip and how so many, there's so many famous women that, date much younger men, and why it's acceptable and why it shouldn't be a thing, and why it happens. And yeah, yeah. So, and then I did a BBC radio series on it as well, interviewing some brilliant whips.
So it's not that you haven't dated since the day after Princess Diana died, because
I've
people
had
assume that it means you've been sitting in your turret, sort of, knitting a little sweater. Yeah, and never
knitting a,
having,
knitting a
yeah,
chastity belt.
and never having sex. When people say I've been single for X amount of, they think, my God, you haven't had sex in like 25 years or whatever. But
No.
that's not what you're saying, is it?
No, it's not. I'm sorry to anyone that doesn't want to visualize that, but no, that's not the truth. Um, I've had one night stands. I've had 3 month collapses. I've had lots of situationships, which they weren't called situationships. They were that. I think that word was only coined. That
But
term was
what
only
that
coined.
situation is just sort of people you kind of get, have intimate,
You're not quite sure what it is. Is it friendship? Is it more? We just don't really. We're not
have
putting a
sex
label on
with.
it, Lucy. Come on, Lucy. We
I
don't need
love
to
that.
do
When
everything.
people say things like, yeah, we're not in a relationship. I'm like, well, I've just spent the last 5 nights with you. So what do you think that is?
Yeah. Relationship with an little R,
Stuff.
and infatuations. But again, that's that whole thing of choosing emotionally unavailable people because actually the emotionally unavailable one was me. But yeah, but I've often dated men younger, even when I was younger. But as I've hit my 50s, it's mainly not totally, but mainly been men that are younger than me that have been attracted to me or interested
So
or
what do
vocal
you think,
about it.
what do you think that's about?
I think there's quite a lot of stuff. I think as we've kind of touched on earlier, that you just care less about stuff. I mean, I'm neurotic about a million things, but not really about men now. I'm just like
Yeah.
whatever, and not really about how I look now. I'm like what kind of whatever. There's nothing I can do about it. And I think losing that neurosis, that kind of that prickly energy, is attractive. The confidence that just comes with getting through life is attractive. The confidence of having a
Mm.
successful career and being a successful person is attractive. I'm not saying I'm a hugely successful person, but I've achieved stuff, and
Mm.
I think there's an attractive energy in that. I think also, if we're going to be kind of like lowest common denominator about it, I think 50 now looks different to 50 did X number of
Yeah,
years ago. I,
totally agree
I
with
think we
that.
look after each other, look after ourselves more. And I think things like social media are great levelers. I used to have Twitter, RIP. I used to have such fun on Twitter, and people care about your politics, your energy, your humor, your take, not really about your age. That's so kind of in the background of it. I think the only time the age comes into play is if you do want children. I
Yeah.
think that's like if you're trying to meet someone and that's something that you're both into. But I think now it's everything's just been kind of freed up, and there's no, and again with social media, all the information's out there for everyone to absorb. So there's no like, if I go on a date with someone younger, I don't feel like there's that kind of um, tumbleweed cultural reference moment. That doesn't seem to exist now because it seems to be a level playing field. Whips the Whips BBC radio series. So I interviewed Sophie Ellis Bextor, Kate Moss, the author, Andrew McLean, Joe Good, Claire Martin, like really fantastic women. And the Whips side was more about emotional and mental response to getting older as opposed to attracting younger men. That was kind of, that was the starting point. It was more about being in your prime career wise, in your prime relevance wise.
Mm.
And I loved it. And to a woman, and one of the questions I'd ask was, do you see getting older as a kind of curse? I mean, it's too extreme, but like a negative or a positive. And they were all going, this is just, it's just, again, I'm scared of sounding like an insta positivity post, but it's like it's just a privilege, and it's there's I think people fear becoming irrelevant as they get older, and again, I think social media. I think it's your choice if you become irrelevant because again, everything is there for you to be part of still.
So, what do you think? What is irrelevant? I'm never quite sure if anyone's that. I mean, I'm never quite sure what relevant is, let alone irrelevant. What do you think people mean by that?
I think they mean that they don't count and their story doesn't count and they're invisible. You always like hear this, people talk about being invisible in an attractive sense, but I think people mean that mentally too.
Yes, that they fear invisibility.
Yeah, we're never going to be invisible.
No, I don't mind any of that. I mean, yeah, I don't feel invisible, but I have a lot of female friends who do.
Yeah. So what's the difference between you and them?
Maybe I don't really know what it feels. I don't know what it sort of means. I'm like visible to who and invisible to who. I don't. Um, so I'm not quite sure who we're supposed to be invisible to.
I bet it's to ourselves. I bet it's if we feel that we've got nothing to contribute, we're going to give that off, aren't we?
Okay, so I think that's interesting because I think what they're saying is that they feel invisible to the male gaze.
Yeah.
Part of me is like I don't without hello men, please don't take this. I don't actually care about the male. Come on, you know
God bless you,
what?
mate.
Yeah, I'm fine by that. But I think you're right. Actually, I think it's about do you have a sense of purpose in
Yeah.
your And by that, I don't mean I'm going to save the world from XYZ. I mean,
Yeah,
actually, I live a life that's relatively purposeful. I have a job, I go and do what I do, and I love what I do, and I do this, and I love this, and it's all
yeah,
about.
yeah,
I think if you don't have that, because I think for a lot of people, maybe they don't have a job or they've never really quite found out what it is they want to do, or maybe they've been bringing up kids or whatever,
yeah,
and they get to menopause, post-menopause, and
yeah.
it all feels it's shut down a bit. I don't just mean our reproductive system, but
Our options and our that feels might feel smaller, and are just our horizons. What is there to do still? But I feel more ambitious now than ever.
yeah, I do. I last year, I joined a band and I sung at Dingwall.
You
On
sung there.
stage. I sang at Dingwall's in Camden, and it was one of the best things I've ever done. Yeah, but I'm a kind of people say I'm a happy waggy-tailed little puppy dog optimist. People say, "Oh, do you want to do this?" I just go, "Yes."
That's insane. What, did you love it?
Loved it. It's
Did
great.
you?
I
You
loved being a band. I loved it. It was great. It was great. Absolutely great. Lots of people are like, "How could you do it?" I'm like, "Well, how could I not do it?"
Are you going to do more? Can I see you?
Yes, why not? I mean, so I think there's also that going on, isn't there? Which is your level of energy about life, and
Yeah,
you have a strong energy about life.
yeah, yeah.
But do you know why or where that came from?
Again, one of my many therapists, my first therapist actually, said again like the unorthodox kind of upbringing I think is added to it, and there was lots of things kind of happening throughout my life, and she described as me how she went that little flame inside you that like the flame in a gas boiler, she went it just does not go out with you, and I kind of love that. I
Yeah,
kind of love that. And I'm not just saying me, I think everyone's got that. But I think, again, if you tune into it, I just am tenacious. I just won't. I've always done everything. Again, this comes down to being on my own my whole life. I've had gorgeous friendships, but like you say, that's not the same as having a partner that you're lying in bed with and just saying, I'm really freaked out about this. I'm really freaked out about this. There's this tax bill. There's, blah, 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 blah. Um, if you do that on your own, you have to do that on your own. So I kind of think I also remember this first therapist saying to me, because I remember saying to her, I'm shattered. All I'm doing is fighting and trying this and firefighting and blah, blah, blah. And she said, what would happen if you stop? And I thought, oh my God, if it stops, everything would collapse around me. Although maybe it wouldn't, Lucy. So maybe now here's another eureka moment, because maybe it wouldn't. And maybe that's actually the gift of giving yourself space would be a really, ooh, that's got into my head now.
yes. I mean, I think stopping. I think we do way too much.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
doing constantly. I think actually stopping and thinking, well, you see, it's an interesting thing because we think, oh, everything's going to collapse. But if you turn it on its head, as you've just done, I think, well, maybe it wouldn't all collapse. What if it didn't collapse? What if actually it was okay?
and what if that space was what was needed to change the energy and to bring in what should be coming in? Oh God, I don't know. This is great. Are you charging me for this?
No, of course not. So if you're thinking about going into a proper, in inverted commas, long-term relationship,
Yeah,
you're going to have to give up, in inverted commas, your sense of I do everything myself, aren't you?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I kind of want to do that. And then I'm kind of like, I don't know how people do it. How do people do it?
Well, they're used to doing it. So what's quite interesting as I always talk about couple energy and single energy. So, couples are just used to being in a couple.
Yeah,
So when they split up, I think one of the reasons why people recouple very quickly, lots of people recouple quick, maybe too quickly, is because that's what they're used to. They're used to waking up in the morning and having someone else there.
yeah,
They're used to doing things as a two. They're one of a two. They're
yeah,
used to booking holidays and two of them there and driving and arguing about which way to go. That's their norm.
yeah,
Single people who've been long-term single, the norm is precisely the opposite of that. The norm is you go to bed when you want to go to bed, you wake up when you will, more or less. You're
yeah,
in single energy.
Yeah.
So for couples, they don't they look at singles. So lots of couples look at singles and think, wow, that looks amazing. That and singles are couples think that looks amazing, but they don't quite know how to cross over the bridge to each other's state.
I've got the answer. We'd get houses next to each other.
Well, that's the other thing you can do. You don't have to live together. So people often think, singles often say to me, I don't want to give up my independence. I'm like, but it's not an either or.
Mm, mm.
So you've also written a lot about not having children, and you've said to me in the past that that's caused quite
Oh, that's been,
a lot of whatever, hot air, not hot air, a lot of controversy, a lot of,
yeah, and it's really interesting to me because the first I found myself right because I when I started writing magazines, I don't know how I kind of got into I came into writing late. I was when you were saying about singing, I sang for a while, and I was in an a cappella group, and we sang at Ronnie Scott's.
wow,
Yeah, baby. But
amazing.
I was so bad. That was the day I decided to become a writer. I was so
Can't have been
nervous.
that bad. You're at Ronnie. I love Ronnie Scott. That was my
I know, right?
favorite.
Now my nerves would go to my throat, my voice, and I
Okay.
wasn't
Yeah.
terribly good. But I loved singing. I loved the rehearsals. I loved the voices merging. I loved all that. But anyway, blah. So
Mm.
I got into writing quite late. And again, it's the whole thing of being older. I went to LCP and studied journalism when I was 27. Everyone else in my course were in the bar having sex with each other. I was actually studying with great disrespect. And because I knew what I wanted to do, I was really focused. Um, and I kind of started writing straight away about my own experience. I think I was one of the first writers that did that. That you know, that kind of I'm going to say something gross, but kind of that spread your legs journalism. And so I would write about kind of my life and my take on things, and continue to do that. And then one of the first times I wrote about not having children was for a magazine saying Grazia, saying, I wonder if I've missed the baby boat. I wonder if I'm not going to have children. This is because again I'd been single this whole time, and it was and that was I didn't get any attacks. Oh, attacks! I didn't get any kind of fierce feedback on that piece because it was just me positing a notion, just asking that question. The first time I wrote something fierce about it was in the Guardian in 2012, and I didn't give it the headline. If I can please
Well, we
caveat,
don't do the headlines. Can everyone just out there know we don't write the
I
headlines?
don't write the headlines, and so the headlines was "Mothers Stop Moaning." I didn't write that.
Oh gosh.
So can
Look,
you imagine what
others
happened?
stop moaning.
But I will give Guardian credit, they didn't touch the copy, and the copy was kind of saying, it was a bruised plea, just saying, you have no idea what it's like if you wanted children, you don't have them. Please kind of know what you've got and appreciate what you've got. And, you know, this is just like a glorious thing that you've got. And it, so I wrote this piece, and I could never see why it got fierce feedback. There was a feature in the Guardian the week after about the feature and about the feedback it had got. And I could never quite understand why it kicked off. And I think it inadvertently somehow shone a light on people's happiness or not
Right.
of their own situation. People got very defensive about it. And then I wrote a piece again for The Guardian just saying, you know, you're a survivor if you don't have children, you wanted children because you're standing in society. I mean, you mean, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, of course.
You honestly mean fuck all in society if you don't have children. I'll give you some examples in a minute. And it's so, I never saw that devastating PS. That's the real kind of shitty icing on an already rancid cake. I never saw that bit coming. And so my grief. So anyway, I write fierce pieces about it, and I don't try to be outrageous or controversial. I'm just saying what I'm feeling. And I'm also saying what millions of other people are feeling because when I write about these things, I get attacked, but I also get huge amounts of support. And this is really interesting, Lucy. I wrote the 2012 feature was picked up by an education board and used for an AS English level paper. I
Wow.
never knew how it was framed. I never knew what the content was. But anyway, it was picked up. That was 2012. Um, and, you know, I never really got any feedback until about 2, 3 years ago when the world started going more and more right wing, more back into traditional values. I started getting hate emails and attacks, trolls from the students that were reading the same paper. So I don't know how it's been framed now. It's so interesting to me. So it's like the take is if if you dare say anything, it's called pronatalism, worshipping at the altar of parenthood, especially motherhood. If you say anything that questions that in any way, oh my God, you're the devil. and this whole thing of like the social standing. So I hosted an event, an International Women's Day panel this weekend, and really brilliant event. And I met such incredible women. It was lovely. And a woman came up to me at the end, and we were chatting. And she said, "What are you up to next?" And I said, "I'm working on a podcast about not having children." And I'm determined to get this made because I think it's so needed, about the childless and the child-free experience. And she said, "Oh, sign me up." Instant subscriber. She went, "I don't have children either." And she said, "Do you have a mentor?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And she said, "I've started mentoring." She went, "And this has happened to me." This woman, who is so successful in three fields, has offered free mentoring to people, and she's had more than one person say to her, "I think you're great at what you do, but I don't want to be mentored by you because you didn't have children."
Whoa.
Now, what that could mean is someone saying, "You haven't had to juggle motherhood and a career," and I don't relate to that. But here's what I'm going to say, Lucy Cavendish. I think if you wanted children and you're living with that grief, that infinite grief, if you're seen as a piece of shit in society and you're lessened and you're othered every single day, every hour that you're awake, the courage and the strength and the determination and the fire in the boiler of your belly to keep you going and to achieve in a workplace where mothers get all the support, you're just as fucking qualified to be a mentor as you are if you didn't have children.
Yeah.
It makes me apoplectic. Dolly Parton, listen to my voice. Dolly Parton's partner, husband of 60 years, died last week.
Mm.
And there was a feature, oh my God, there was a photo of the beautiful photo of them two just cuddling each other. And the caption, "They never had children." Nothing about their 60-year marriage and that extraordinary love story and how distraught she will be, destroyed and distraught she will be. They never had children. Victoria Derbyshire introducing a TV show, introducing on her show an item of an exclusive interview with the aunt of Alan Kurdi, the Syrian toddler who died at sea. Tragic, tragic, tragic case. Opened the interview with, "If you're a parent, you might find this upsetting." What about as a human being? You don't have the shortcut. You don't have the monopoly on compassion and empathy. This makes me so angry. I'm not sure if you can tell. I hate it. The Labour Party repositioning briefly as the party of the family. Well, I don't have a family, but you'll take my tax. Hard-working families affected by the cost of living crisis. Well, I need a roof, I need to eat, but it doesn't affect me. Lucy, it drives me insane.
So it's really everywhere. It's
It's
pernicious.
everywhere. And you now, your ears will open up to that now, and you will hear that everywhere. And
Oh,
if I hear an MP say it, I'm like, okay, they're trying to go for the lowest common denominator, winning that emotive vote. To be honest, though, what that means is they care more about the kind of people that would not vote for them if they didn't use the word people than they do the kind of people that would only vote if they use the word family. But if it's a presenter, if it's a broadcaster, if it's an interviewer doing it, it's just cheap. It's bullshit. There's no gain. You're just it. I find it hurtful because there is something about being told, hardworking families. Would you ever, in an election, say we're the party for hardworking whites?
mm,
We're the party for hardworking straights.
yeah.
It's bigotry, but it's accepted bigotry. And so when I write about it, I write with this voice. I don't want to appease parents. I'm not starting on parents. I love parents. There are brilliant parents. There are terrible parents. There are brilliant people with no children. There are terrible people with no children.
Yes,
I
of
remember doing
course.
a panel, and the panelist saying to me, "I don't think going against parents is the answer." I said, "I'm not going against anyone. I'm addressing it. I'm trying to address the balance here. You know, I'm exhausted. I used to write tweets and I'd say a million things I've done that day. I've written a feature. I've done a live radio show for 2 hours. Yeah, written a feature, started a script, bought something for someone, bought someone dinner, done this, done this, done this, got home. I'm exhausted, which is weird because I don't have children. You don't have during COVID. If I see another tweet of someone saying they're doing this on their own and COVID's so awful for them, I'll scream. It's like COVID was awful for everyone. Homeschooling must have been a fucking nightmare. Being on your own and not seeing anyone, ditto.
Mm,
I can't bear it, Lucy. It makes me so angry. Can you tell?
yeah. I mean, so you feel very judged, obviously.
I feel judged, but I also feel if we're talking about invisible
Mm,
as as not having children. That's where I'm not seen, and so that's why I'm vocal about it, and that's why I will talk about it.
So if you meet people, do they make the assumption that you've got children? I mean,
Yeah,
how?
yeah. So I did a radio recently. So I do radio shows, and I did a live radio show, and it was fantastic. It was super funny. It was super smart. A really brilliant range of guests, and it was smooth as the interviews were great. I think everyone had a fantastic time. Live audience, so I had to kind of play the audience as well. I think great. You used a lot of skills, and this girl was there that I knew, and her mum was there, and they came over to me and said how much they enjoyed it, which was very sweet of them. And I said, "Oh my God, you two look so alike. How lovely!" And the mum said to me, "Do you have children?" And I said, "No." And she did the poor Jen head tilt. She went, "I'm so sorry." I thought, go fuck yourself, love. I've just done something you can't do.
Wow. What do you do with that?
What do you do with it? I say something and I'm the problem.
Yes, I mean, bless her, but she assumed, yeah. I mean, she made lots of assumptions around that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't say anything back. So I'm like, she
You
hasn't
could have
tried.
said, I'm so sorry that you felt you had to populate the earth. Well, I mean, we won't go
Excuse
into
me.
that, but I mean, you could,
But then you ruin the night for her. She's come to an event. But it ruined the night for me. It ruined the night for me. I've had it apropos. I've had it in work interviews. I've had it in meetings. You have children. I'm like, no, no, I'm very sure legally you can't ask that. It's such a why is that the go-to conversation? Because I mean, because a lot of people wanted children that don't have children. A lot of people are child-free. A lot of people are childless. And if you're childless and it's a source of pain, why is that the okay question to ask? There's got to be more. If we're talking about conversation starters, literally talk about what you had for dinner last night.
and
Or
I don't think people ask men that. Do they ask men that?
no, I think they do not ask men that. I wrote a piece about men that are childless, and
Yeah.
that was interesting because they don't ask men that, but actually the flip side of that is there isn't really a narrative for men that don't have children that's in any
No,
way positive.
no, I hear
And,
that. I hear
and one
that.
of them said to me, if you're a man that wanted children that don't have children, people think you're a 40-year-old virgin living in your mum's basement.
Yes, that's right.
At least at least there's women are more able to talk about it. Oh, do you know what this? I don't know. This is what I find exhausting.
Yes, I think you're raising amazing points that maybe people haven't really heard. They haven't, it's not a world that they're in, maybe.
Yes and no, but you're kind of like JD Vance, the crazy cat lady comment. I mean, everything is disparaging. And
Yes.
you don't know why I didn't have children. You don't know my story. You don't I mean, I was what they call socially infertile. How sexy is that? I'm putting that on my Tinder. Socially infertile means
What does that mean?
it means that you just didn't meet anyone. So like physically able to have children, just didn't meet someone.
Socially infertile.
Yeah, isn't that horrible?
Awful.
Awful. Awful. And it's
Do
no one's
you
business.
find it in dating? Do people ask you that when you're dating? Do men say, why do
Well,
you have children?
interestingly, because I'm so vocal about it, and because I've got such an unusual name, and I've been a journalist for over 30 years, just a quick little Google will come up with that information about me, which is a weird thing for me. So
Mm.
people don't ask me because I'm assuming they know. And that's weird for me because I'm like, God, I've talked about the most private, personal, painful thing for me. I think I did it as part of my process.
Mm.
And the very happy PS is that I didn't set out to do it like this, but oh God, I sound like a wanker saying this, but it's helped some people
Yes, I'm
because,
sure it has.
and
I'm
I kind
sure
of love that.
it has.
I love that.
Yeah. I think it's really helpful.
Yeah.
Have you found that women turn on you? Do women find it more difficult than, I
Yeah.
mean, difficult might not be the right word, than men. I mean, it's really interesting. It's like, women.
It's been more women, definitely. Quite a few quite well-known columnists called me a misogynist. Um, One of them said, if you're not allowing women their experience, and I said, well, what's the word when you don't allow every woman their experience?
What does she mean by that? You're not allowing women. You're not saying I'm not interested in hearing about people's
No?
experience. That's not what you're saying. You're saying I don't want to be treated,
Yeah, I'm not.
terminology.
Yeah, it's
I
extraordinary. But
totally hear
this is what I mean by people. People A million people will read the same 2,000 words and there'll be a million different takes on those 2,000 words. Everyone brings their own stuff to the table. And what you were saying earlier about people not knowing this and not really hearing this, I kind of think that was the truth 20 years ago. Now people, Jodie Day, brilliant Jodie Day from Gateway Women, platform for women, people that are childless not by choice. I've been talking about this forever. I've written about it. Lots of people have talked about it. If once it's out there and you're hearing it and you're still not absorbing it, you're choosing not to listen.
Yeah.
You're choosing not to hear that. I've been asked to, I had a friend, ex-friend Lucy, tell me it mattered more if she died because she had children than if I died. I,
God.
it's genuinely extraordinary stuff that you would never say to any other minority. Although 1 in 5 women in the UK will reach postmenopause without having children. That's 1 in 5. That's a lot. Ever growing demographic around the world.
But there's also an assumption that you wouldn't understand maternal feelings, which you don't need to have a child to feel maternal, or whatever
So
that.
I pitched. I love that you said that. I pitched a feature idea saying you can mother without being a mother, which I thought was a really lovely idea. I'm very maternal, and
Yeah.
I've got maternal relationships with my nieces, my nephews, but also my friends. You know, and I really love uh, my friends' kind of teenage children. I have such a lovely time with them. I love it. I think, oh yeah, I love it. I had pitched this idea that you can mother without being a mother. And the commissioning editor came back and went, yeah, love it. And what you can say is all the stuff you said before, like you were wrong about mothers, and it was all coming from anger and grief. No, I know the feature you want. Bibi Lynch has changed her mind about mothers. I know the feature you want, sweetheart. That's not happening because that's not the truth. People can't hear it, Lucy. It's so weird to me.
Well, it's very separate. It's as if you've said all mothers are crap, terrible, selfish, horrible people. That's actually not what you're
Mm-mm,
saying.
mm-mm.
Like, you're not an anti-mother person.
I'm not anti-mother, and I've had people say that to me before. Introduce me to someone. I remember being at somewhere recently, and one of the women had to leave, and this bloke said, "Oh, so and so's leaving. She's got to go and see her children." And he went, "Bibi hates children." Well, I'd suggest that Bibi loves children, and that's why not having children was so devastating for Bibi. Bibi hates children. How reductive is that?
I'm so sorry. I
Oh.
just, it's awful to have to go through stuff like that. Well, you don't have to go through it. You've got a voice. Thank goodness you've gone, actually, I'm not having this.
And do you know what, as well? When I've talked about this with people, a lot of women in my situation, men too, but this was a woman I'm specifically thinking of, hadn't even clocked the thing about MPs, politicians talking about hardworking families or as a mother. And she said, God, I'm so invisible, back to our word, which seems to be the theme of this chat, that I don't even acknowledge it myself. I don't even acknowledge myself. I feel so worthless that I don't even acknowledge that I am seen as nothing. That's accepted, of course I'm nothing. Fuck that. That's the little flame in me. Fuck that.
Wow, yeah. That's really painful.
It's painful, and it's also so another. Oh God, I'm on one now, sweetheart. But there was one again. A well-known journalist had an agony column, and which was agony, and someone got in touch with her and said, "I'm middle-aged now. I didn't have children. I'm really feeling the grief." And the reply, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was along these lines, was why make a list of things you have got, not what you haven't got, and you can go on the money you didn't spend, you can go on a cruise with your toy boy. So I obviously wrote a response to this person and said, well, actually, what you've just said is like me saying to you, I'm sorry your boy just died, but you're not having spent send university fees now. So look, spend that money and turn his room into a gym. Come on, look on the bright side. That's exactly what it was. That's what she said to that woman. That's the effect that would have had on that woman.
She didn't engage with the grief at all.
Didn't engage with grief because, as Jodie Day calls it, it's disenfranchised grief.
Mm,
I've
mm,
had I've had a therapist. The one time that I've had a kind of oof moment with a therapist was I was talking about the grief of not having children,
mm.
and she said, "Oh God, it could have been worse. She could have had a child and it could have died." Why did that have to be brought to a thing that she could recognise?
I think when people are naming stuff they're sad about and they're grieving, to say to someone it could be worse is cloth-eared, and that's me being polite.
Yeah. So I'm always this podcast I want to do, honestly, Lucy, talking about being ambitious, and I'm doing a book on the back of it. I am so psyched about this because I think there's a way of making these things fierce but
Mm,
funny and
mm,
frank and real deal because that's the only way things change, isn't it? I'm not
mm.
making it anodyne. I'm not making it appeasing to everyone. I'm not attacking anyone, but I'm making it real. And when it's real, that's when you look at it and that's when you see it and that's when change happens.
So the podcast is going to be what? Tell us a bit about the podcast because we're all
It's
going
going
to.
to be about the childless, child-free. So I'm working on it with Dawn Emery, brilliant journalist and producer. It's called No Baby Brain, and it's about the childless and child-free experience, and it's just talking about exactly what happens, but the real deal. We'll have celebrity interviews. We'll have the No Baby Brain bingo. Have mine for the weekend. Someone did a post recently which made me howl, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. This is awful. Her dad died, terrible, but she said not one person said to her, have my dad for the weekend. Oh, well, at least, I mean, he was a bit of a pain, but, at least you don't have to look after him now, which is what happens, have my kids for the weekend, God, you'd be bored with them by then, blah. And the money situation, oh, it costs money to have children. Oh my God, try being single. The single penalty costs more than having a child. I'm absolutely convinced of it. Living on your, oh, anyway.
What's interesting to me is it gets into a battle. It's like who's
Yeah,
better off, is it? And it's weird.
it's such a weird thing, Lucy, but I've
So
lost friendships
insanely. I
because
mean,
of
why
it.
are people arguing about, well, you've got more money, well, I mean, and what? I mean, what is this about? It's not
But
a.
but that is my point. What is this about? Why am I not allowed to say my? Why do you have to trump me every time? The
Hmm.
mental health card. Oh, it's you get depressed having a child. You can have depressed not having a child. Why? Who's making these rules? It's the weird. And again, I think it's because I am inadvertently shining a light on their happiness or not therein. Because here's the thing about pronatalism, and we will discuss this in the podcast. We will do celeb interviews talking about what's been happening, the as a mother or pronatalistic bullshit in the news that week, childless, child-free hero of the week, talking about how they're changing these lives. Um, these things are they just drive me insane, but it has to be kind of addressed, I think, and
Hmm.
um, yeah, in a I don't want it to be deliberately provocative, but it is a really emotive,
Yes,
important thing. And people,
important to you. It's important, and it's your calling.
but this is what I was going to say about pronatalism, which we will talk about in the pod. Pronatalism serves no one. It doesn't serve you if you wanted children, you didn't have them, and you're told that you lost the love that makes life worth living, and without children, you're nothing. As they will say on I love EastEnders with all my heart, but when they start talking about, well, I'm a mum, so I know about love. Fuck off, cat. It's that kind of thing drives me mad. But it doesn't serve parents either, because I'm
Hmm.
sure being a parent is really tricky, and it's not always absolutely gorgeous and glowing. And if you don't feel that way about it all the time, the way you're told you're supposed to feel about it, you then feel bad about your how you respond.
Kill them. Yeah. Of
So
course you can. Of course you do.
pronatalism doesn't work for anyone. So why don't we just be straight about it? And why don't we also say that
Stop getting out in this pink fluffy cloud land. Stop it.
yeah, but why
Not
can't we
helpful.
why can't we be valid whatever our status?
Yeah. I'm hearing it.
Are you, darling?
I am. It's your calling. You're going to do it. It's going to be great. But what you need to do is get parents to listen to it.
Oh, you're totally right. My lovely friend Shelley says exactly that. She went, it's kind of terrible you need it, but you need your allies and you need your parent allies because that unfortunately is the way of the world, and that would spread the word. But you are totally right.
Because that's the people that need a bit of educating.
Yeah. I mean, I want this for the community, but the community knows all this. This needs to spread out.
That's
And
right.
what
That's
and
right.
what
The community already knows this. That's right. So yeah.
one of the most beautiful things, my friend Shelley's daughter Ella said to me, they came to visit and she said something. She said, oh, someone said something about not having children. And so I kind of corrected them. And I said, did you? I said, why did you do that? She went, because you've talked about it. And it just made my heart go. So it does change. This
Yeah.
can change. And other friends have said that now you've said this, I hear it on the news. I hear that they,
Yeah.
as a mother or as a parent, or this is affecting families, or the contrast will always be families or business. Just say people. Just
Mm.
say people.
So
I've stopped shouting now, Lucy.
okay, we're coming to the end, but let's think forward 5 years.
Yeah.
Your podcast's taken off, your book's taken off. You can do this stuff standing on your head, right? You're an upbeat journo, you know all this stuff. What about your love life in 5 years' time?
Oh,
Let's put it out there.
I would so love to be with someone. I've got someone in mind as well. I'm not going to say.
Okay. You don't have to say, but in 5 years' time, maybe
So we were okay. 5 years' time, we're going to have. I live in Hove, but I'm from London, and I love both. So we're going to have a place in Hove together. We're going to have a place in London together. Um, he's so handsome, Lucy. You're going to be so jealous. He's so funny and smart and emotionally intelligent.
got
And
an Insta friend that I fancy the pants off. He's so gorgeous. He's not your man. You put a picture on, I was like, who is that handsome man?
oh, he's gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
He's single.
Look,
He's really gorgeous.
waving my hand.
Okay,
Why
do
you
this.
with him then?
Okay. Excuse me, can we go back to my love life? Honestly,
Yes, sorry.
anyway, seriously. Anyway, yeah, and we will have a really gorgeous life where we don't have to work, but the work we do is really important to us and really special, and it's what we love. And we would travel, and we would just. He's going to teach me to cook, and he's just going to protect me and not die. Don't die.
Not gonna die.
He's never dying. We're never dying.
I'm gonna hold you to that, right? You're gonna do work that's significant for the two of you.
Okay.
Beautiful life, traveling together.
Yeah.
Houses here and there, no one's dying.
Yeah, no one's dying. And just
you see, you've lit up.
Just sharing something.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I just think it would be, oh, I'm excited.
Very exciting. I'm holding
you. Let me talk about all of this, Lucy. You're so lovely.
No, this is what my podcast is about. It's for us to talk and share and people to listen and get a lot out of it.
Sorry, I swore.
You can swear, everyone swears, it's fine. So where can people find you if you want to connect with you?
I am on, I'm not on Twitter anymore, RIP, I'm so sad about that, but I'm on Insta at Bibi Lynch, and my website is bibylynch.com, and please do kind of connect, because I'm so excited and psyched about this podcast, and I would love people to kind of get involved, and parents, non-parents, just to really support it, and just, their honest take on it. So I will keep everyone posted about what's going on with that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We're all going to follow you. You're very good on Instagram. You make me laugh so much. You're so funny.
Thank you.
And, and there's a serious issue here. So we're all going to get behind this and engage. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.